You've reached Monster 911, and I'm Lance Hightower. I've been taking cryptid emergency calls for over 5 years. If you have a cryptid emergency, please call our toll-free number, 866-306-8085. I can help you. What's your emergency?
Well, there's things that happen to the family here and there way back when, I've always believed because, it's just always been there. You know what I'm saying? I think I was probably 12 when my brother, he was 16 living with this guy because it was closer to his work. And we're in the UP. I don't know if you're familiar with Upper Michigan at all, but we're probably got 90% uninhabited as far as property. You can go forever, or you can be in a little community like me where we're on probably 3 to 5 acres on the road. I got a lot of woods behind me and little creeks and rivers and stuff. I'm actually not that far from a town.
Okay.
But my brother, we lived probably an hour and a half from here where I grew up, and in a little town called, and it's a mining town with a lot of caves and rocks and stuff. And he's walking and he comes around the corner and he comes upon a female Bigfoot feeding a baby. And he had never heard of him. He'd never heard of him. So he goes back and he tells this guy, and he says, "You didn't tell me, you did not say nothing." He says, "No." I said, "Excuse me." I turned around and I walked away. And he says, she might have been covered in fur like an animal, but she was human. She was more human than animal. And she was just quietly nursing her baby in front of a cave. That night, they come and they tore all the siding off the trailer house and just rocked the whole trailer because he disturbed that Bigfoot. So he's telling us this story, and my mom said, "Well, you sure it's not a bear? We had a bear one time." She says, "We heard the pig squealing, and your dad come out with a gun, and we're at the door, and here's this big bear, and he has a pig under each arm, and he walked off with those pigs. And your dad followed him. That bear was huge," she said. "And your dad followed him, and then he come back right away, and he says that he can have the pigs." He said he had shot it, and when he come up on a mud hollow where it had kneeled down onto one of the pigs and packed its wound with mud, then picked the pig up and walked back off. And I thought, I've never seen a bear walk like that. But, I was just a kid, 12. Dad said, he come in while she's telling us, and he said, and she said, "What?" He says, "Stop. Don't talk about that." And he wouldn't talk about it. Now I can look back on that story and thought that had to be a Bigfoot because bears can't put their arms on their hips and carry off a 250 pounds of pigs.
Right.
You know what I'm saying, Lance?
Well, right. I mean, you don't have, the biggest thing that bears don't have is an opposing thumb. They have to, when they grasp something, the term bear hug is literal in the sense that how it holds something down or grasps something is they have to use two forearms, their arms to grasp it.
Because my brother he started the UP Bear Houndsman Association.
Okay.
And he's still the president to this day. I'm the 13th child by a minute. I come from a huge family. I got 7 brothers and 5 sisters. Okay, so we're a big family. And he raised baby bears for a long time. He'd drop them off to me while he went to work, and they'd sit in bean bags and watch TV and drink bottles with my kids. They grew up with my kids, till they were a certain age. And when they started, then they'd go to their new homes. So I know bears. I know bears really well. I also sat through Terry DeBrien's lectures on bears. I can talk bear poop with you till I'm blue in the face because I heard it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But, and there's, I know it sounds stupid, but if I go somewhere, a bear usually shows up. And I don't know why. I helped a friend that was on a property for 10 years, and she'd throw her furniture in the woods, and when I noticed that all that furniture, I said, what the hell is that? She said, well, I can't afford. I said, stop. I said, we built a big tin surround, and we started bringing that furniture out of the woods. I said, you can't muck up Mother like that. She'll bite you in the ass. You know what I'm saying, Lynn?
Right.
Well, we could only work maybe half hour, 45 minutes, because the bears would come and sit in it. They would make her nervous. They didn't make me nervous, but they made her nervous. I'm very respectful of them, but I'm not afraid of them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Certain situations, I'm afraid of them. Like if there's a female with cubs and a male is coming in, yeah, I'm leery. I'm scared then. But so I moved on this property about 15 years ago. Now my son, he's 27 years old. He's probably, it was 15 years ago. So he was young. He was 12 years old. And when he had always went to school in this school area, because I'm from Michigan, and he hung with these two boys, there was 2 to 5 boys that hung, but the 3 hung around all the time. And the little boy down the road here, I can't even think of his name right now. But anyways, he hung, and they hung together, and they would go out to, which, by the way the crows, probably 10 miles away, 10, 15 miles away. Crow fly, probably 10. And the Escanaba River is in between here and there. And he lived back, because no matter where you go, if you're a mile from town, you're in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And he lived back, and their trailer house is on this swamp. He's got a pond in his yard, and there's all kinds of trees and stuff to run, and there's an old railroad track back there with these abandoned train cars. And they would play back there. They'd play back there. They'd shoot each other with BB. They were crazy. You know
right.
how kids are.
Oh, yeah.
We're country kids.
Yeah. We did the same thing. Exactly.
You could play till you're blue in the face. If you get hurt, you're in trouble.
Right.
But he come home, and I've never seen my son so scared. And he I mean, you're talking 12 years old, worked outside from the time he was 3-4 years old on the tractor, taking trees down. He could run a backhoe. He could sit a bulldozer. My neighbor had him come and help clean up some of his woods, and he said that kid's 12 years old, and I don't know grown men, and I work construction that can work a bulldozer like that little boy can. I mean, so he's never in the house. Well aware of his surroundings outside, never afraid of the woods, and he come home, and Lance, I'd never seen that boy so scared in my life. And I says, Andrew, what's the matter?
Mm-hmm.
Kids don't lie till they reach adulthood and they learn to lie.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying, Lance?
No, I agree. I totally agree.
And if you tell them they're lying enough, they don't know what the truth is anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So he says, Mom, we were playing and we were out on them train tracks. And I said, oh, please tell me you guys none of you got hurt out there. He says, Mom, I never heard of this creature. And I said, what is it? He said, it was a dog, but it was a man. He said, it was a man and it chased us. He says, it chased us. It was on top of them tracks. And I'm like, what's that animal doing? Because he said it was on all fours. I said, what's that animal doing? And it, basically, and he said it stood up and it was a man, but it had a dog's head. Now, Lance, I'm from Michigan, but, I'm country. You don't, very few people talk about it, and I had never heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, you don't believe me? I said, yes, I do, honey. I do. And he says, Mom, it was playing with us. It would chase us and come really close to us and kind of huff like a dog will, and then step back. I said, oh, God, And he tells me it's got the ears on its head, and I'm like, oh, God, I've never heard of this. Well, we didn't have internet back then. I'm single mom, 4 kids, 4 or 5 jobs. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So anyways, I didn't dare ask anybody because, they think you're nuts.
Oh, I know.
They'll tell you you're nuts. And if you're working in the public like I did, you wouldn't keep your job. Even though I was just a cashier, if I go around spouting that crap, even Bigfoot was out there, you wouldn't have a job. You wouldn't get hired.
Well, right, because you represent the business.
Yeah. Nobody to talk to.
Tell me again where your son saw this, or him and his buddy had this encounter
at. It gets better. Trust me, it gets better. It was 15 years ago, March 3rd, that we moved here, and it was the spring of that year.
And where was this at?
Are you familiar with Michigan?
I'm looking at a map right now so I can get a mind's eye. I'm not familiar with specifically that, but say it.
Let me give you my address, and you can pull up on Google Maps.
Okay.
And you can see how rural it is. My address is.
Okay.
I'm trying to keep this stuff in chronicle order for you to make it easy to understand where I'm at now.
Say it again now.
Michigan.
All right.
I'm in Upper Michigan. I'm 4 miles from the lakes, and there's rivers. A river is probably the same distance. And then, but you probably heard of In the Moonlight. Did a movie.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I'm 16 miles from and he would have been less than, probably at the most 7 to 10 miles where this happened. And you got, in a little square, then you got river, then you come up the highway, you got, and you come over back to, and you got behind me, and it's all in a loop, okay?
Okay.
So he's over there. So they stopped playing over there, and they started playing just down the road. Now, you come down my road, and you got a big corner, and Dustin is just before the big corner. They build a bonfire out there, and they do whatever. They were probably playing here. And they met up 3-4 times a week and just played hard all summer. They worked hard, and they played hard. These are all boys that their dads worked them like dogs. They had jobs. It's not like today where your kids are in front of, you worked. And even now, they'll play their games, like their TV games, but it's at night. They're airsoft gunning, or they're working on vehicles, or they're working. So it's probably 3-4 weeks later, and they give him a ride home. Oh, come on, it's a quarter of a mile, maybe. Never. I don't care what time of the day or night, they walked home. So they gave him a ride home, and I said, you came in a car, and he's shaking, and he's crying. There's big tears rolling down his eyes, and he's, Mom, it followed us. It followed us. Oh, my God, Mom, it's followed us. I said, wow. What? He says, that Dogman followed us. I said, are you kidding me? He says, no, Mom, it's here. It's in the neighborhood. I said, well, maybe it's a different one. He says, no, I don't think so, Mom. I said, did you see it? He says, yeah, we didn't only see it. He says, we didn't only, it made sure we seen us. And he says, and Mom, you can't mistake how evil it feels when they're watching you. He says, it's evil. It's a feeling you get when they're watching you. Even if you can't see them, it's evil. And I said, geez, I never heard of them. I said, but I totally believe you. I said, you're just going to have to be careful. He says, I'm not giving up the woods. We're not giving up the woods. We talked about it. He says, Mom, I'm scared. Now, what I didn't tell you is the night he come home, he started having night terrors, and to this day he has night terrors. And it was probably early last year, I'd say early spring, about a year ago, that I finally made him talk to the doctor, and he's on medication so he can sleep at night. Looks like he has black eyes, and if he runs out of his medication, I said, you better go get your medication. I said, because I can tell right now he ain't been taking it because of your eyes. If you don't take that medication, he has night terrors all night. Night terrors to the point that he can't keep a girlfriend because he comes so violently out of them night terrors. When them night terrors start, it's so violent, him trying to get away, that he hurt one of his girlfriends pretty bad. She understood. She knew he was dreaming, but he can't have a relationship and have anybody sleep in the bed with him.
How old is he now?
27. And
how old was he at the time when this happened, this event?
12. when it started.
Wow.
So it's been 15 years with nightmares. And it was last year that he finally knew the family doctor enough that he told him he was having night terrors, not what about, but he dreams about those damn dogmen.
Well, it sounds like he's had definitely a level of PTSD. Has he gotten any help for that?
He won't talk. He will not. The day he come home and said they followed him, he's only talked about it a couple times, but he won't say what it looks like. He won't tell you what happened. He just says they're here. Well, I'll go back into the story. So about, I'd say 6 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, my granddaughter's 14, and she was probably 7 or 8. So about 6 years ago, I walk the property. I'm overweight. I walk the property. I have bad knees. I have knees replacements. I don't like to walk up and down the road, but I walk my 5 acres. I got a road that goes on each side of it, and then there's the power line right that separates my property with maybe another 30, 40 feet of property. The power line is in there, and you know how they clear them power lines.
Oh, right.
Okay. So I will walk the side of the property around the back and up the other side, and in the summer I walk it 3-4 times. To get the exercise, I need to keep my knees limber, and I know my hips really need to be replaced. But so I walk because if you don't use it, you lose it.
Mm-hmm.
Lance, I'd be crippled if I give in to my daily pain and stuff. So I walk it, and I'm walking with the granddaughter. My grandkids, I got 4 grandkids, 14, 12. One's going to be 8 in August, and one just turned 6, and I walk the property all the time, and they'll walk with me when I walk the property. And I carry a stick because I've always had bears here. I have from the day I moved in, all summer there was female that would feed her cubs because I got trees, and you would pull into my driveway and park, and there would be a yard on each side, and then there was a bunch of trees, and then there was a clearing where the people before hunted, and then there's a bunch of trees all the way around that to the back. I'm 90, probably, I'd say at least 85 to 90% trees on my property. Trees so thick that if I sat and looked at the road, you couldn't see any of the neighbors from outside. Nowhere you walked on my property could you see through to the neighbors. They had ferns on the ground. They had little saplings, little Christmas trees, and mostly maple on the property, but they had them damn Christmas trees. And I hate an evergreen because they're nothing to me but sticky and a bug catcher. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
But anyways, I would walk the property, and you get to a certain point, and you go, like the road would come down, and then there was a little group of trees, and you could turn by the outhouse to go straight back to the property, or you could walk through and go through that little meadow, and you could go around, and the bear would nurse in that meadow. I wasn't afraid of her, but every once in a while the big male would come through, probably 2 to 3 times a week. That big male would come through, depending on how fast he made his loop. They'll do a 1,500-mile loop a week, And so I'm coming around that. We're go by the outhouse, and we start in the woods, and we're walking. And there's a very distinct difference between something that walks on 4 legs and something that walks on 2. And I have never met a bear that could walk on 2 feet for long.
That's right.
And they sure as hell can't walk through heavy trees on 2 feet. They just can't do it, Lance. Not as heavy as they can't. They would be breaking branches and like crazy.
Right. That's not the nature of how they move. They only do that for curiosity. When they're on 2 legs, they're trying to investigate, oversee something.
Or they're trying to be intimidating to another.
Exactly.
Bear. That's the only time I've seen that action. Or if they want food and they're begging.
You're right.
Tamed. If they're begging or they're trying to get to a beehive, it's just not second nature to them, or it's not even third, fourth, or fifth nature to them. It's very seldom do you see a bear on its hind legs. You just don't, Lance. And we're probably 10 feet into the woods, and I could hear it, and I thought, whoa, because I knew Bigfoot was there. You can feel it. You have that feeling of being watched, not necessarily. And I'm going to tell you some things that I've learned being on this property is they don't smell. They're more like a skunk. If you smell them, they're putting that off. They're putting that off to turn you away from them or something, or they're scared or they're nervous or something. They normally don't smell. You don't smell them. I don't know how familiar you are, but they don't stink like they said unless something's bothering them. So there was no smell, but you could tell. You could hear the 2 feet. My granddaughter said, "Grandma, is that the bear next to us?" And I said, "I don't think so, but that's okay." I said, "There's nothing to worry about because I didn't get any get out of here feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I was fine with it." So I go through the woods and I go around this little clearing and I go around the loop and I stop. And I got my stick. And I could hear these 2 feet picking up and going around the little glen that's back there, that little cleared area, and I could hear it hurrying. And I says to my granddaughter, she says, "Grandma, what's wrong?" I says, "Don't move." Because I could see this wolf. But your mind tells you what you want to believe because you don't want to believe what you see.
That's right.
And I was so scared, and I've never been afraid of anything in the woods. I've been leery, I've been respectful, I've been nervous, I've been a little frightened, but not lose your bowels afraid. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
And my brother-in-law had cleared the bushes between the thing, and he pushed, so there was a bank, and it was on the bank. It was between where I was, my road with the trees on each side, the clearing of the power line, and it was on one of those bankments where he had shoved dirt, and it was standing on there. But, Lance, it wasn't a normal wolf. It was huge for one thing. The head was so huge. It was crazy, but the legs were not straight. They weren't, come down narrow. They were huge. I couldn't really see. There wasn't paws, but you couldn't really tell they weren't paws, but you could tell they weren't paws because of the way they were spread, almost like a hand on the ground. And the legs were, the front legs were so muscular. And they were so muscular, but they weren't straight in front. They were turned to the side, and they were huge. Like you and I would put a hand so that the fingers were meeting each other and to push ourselves up or something, and it was standing like that, and the shoulders and the head was way above the haunches.
I'm losing you just a little bit here. I can barely kind of hear you.
Okay.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Now I hear you. So you were about how far when you...
I'm really bad at distances, but I'd say within 200, 300, 400 yards at the most. I'm bad with distances. I'll be the first to tell you that I'm really bad with distances.
Okay, so it was...
But it was huge.
Okay.
And I says to my granddaughter, I said, "You're to turn around," and I'm standing there with this big walking stick. Because we have coyotes, we have wolves, you have foxes, and even bears. If you can tap them on the nose, most of them will leave you alone, If they do get aggressive, which is very seldom, but you got to be smart. I don't carry a gun, I don't own a gun, and I wouldn't know how to shoot a gun. I know how to shoot a gun, but I wouldn't be able to shoot a gun and hit anything. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, right.
I have 7 brothers that were hunters, but my brothers played a trick on me. My twin brother and my next brother, David, played a trick on me where they had me hold a shotgun away from my shoulder and shoot it when I was probably, 10 years old or so, and I never touched a gun since. I got hurt pretty bad.
Oh.
You know how shotguns are.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of a dirty trick.
So I've never touched. I didn't trust them to teach me anymore, and I never picked up a gun. And I'm regretting it now to the point that I'm at the point where I'm going to learn how to shoot and I'm going to get a gun. And I never thought I would own a gun in my house. I just never did. But anyways, I said, turn around and walk back to the house. Oh, you got to excuse me because I'm just, you go right back to how scared you are. You know what I'm saying when you talk about it?
Oh, absolutely. You'll relive it.
So she says, "Grandma," I says, "you turn around, you walk, you don't run." I said, "You get in the house." I'm in a trailer. The doors don't lock good. It's an old trailer and it's dilapidated, but it's what I can afford on disability. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, "You get in the house, you shut the door, you go in the bathroom where there's no windows, and you shut that bathroom door. And if I'm not back in 20 minutes, you call Mom, or you call your Aunt Sally or Aunt Bean. You call somebody and you tell them there was a wolf in the yard, and I sent you in, and I ain't been back. I said, they'll contact somebody. Okay? So I'm watching. I know this wolf is going to attack. I know it's going to attack, Lance. You can see it. It was mean. It was so intelligent, and it was just so concentrated on us that I knew it was coming. And I thought, I'm dying here today, but my granddaughter will be safe. So I could hear the footprints coming around that field start to pick up, and I glanced out of my eyes, and my granddaughter's pretty much to the house, and it starts to move at me. And I thought, I'm taking you with me, and I grabbed that stick, and I'm going to fight, because I'm going to keep it off my granddaughter as long as I can,
Oh, right.
So it starts coming at me, and it's probably halfway to me when this reddish, long-haired brown, and I said bear, because that's the color of the hair that the bear that nursed in the field would nurse in the field. She had that long reddish hair, and it come out just like a linebacker on a football field. I'm not a big sports, but you know how they'll run and they'll hit each other?
Right.
And they hit like that. But Lance, they never made a noise. If you have a dog fight or whatever, there's growling and stuff. There was not a sound, and they were fighting like crazy. And all I thought was, thank you, Lord. And I said, thank you for helping me. And I turned around and I walked back to the house and shut the door. And I said, it was a wolf and a bear. But Lance, it wasn't your normal wolf, and that wasn't a bear. It was huge.
So you're saying that it was possibly what we're calling this Dogman creature and a Bigfoot that was fighting?
Yes, I'm sure it was.
And this was just out back on your property.
This is on my property. My property is probably 5 acres and pretty square.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now on Google Maps.
You know where the power line is?
Yep.
Where the power line is?
Yes, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah. You see, does it show the little glen where there's a little break in the trees? It's very small.
Yes.
Okay, it was at that corner. If you go to if you're looking at the power line, you got the clearing on your right, and you got the woods on your left, and that road is just not far from that clearing, maybe 10, 20 steps, and goes right back to the power line. And it was right on that where that road. I could just come around and see it, and still couldn't because she was probably 20 steps behind me. Because she picks up sticks and pine cones, and you know how kids are curious and stuff.
Right.
So it was quite a while before I got up the courage to go back there again. And in the meantime, my son had some friends. They were moving. They had some renters that trashed a house, and they had a bunch of stuff. And he decided he'd burn it in the back field without my permission. And he started having bonfires back there. And I said, Mom, I've already been burning it. You were gone. I've already been burning it. Well, the Dogman started interrupting those burns. But he didn't say anything. He just put the fire out and come in. And he was really quiet. And I just figured, well, he's tired. He worked all day. He's, burning all night. Well, I started walking, and I don't know, it was probably the next summer that I would still walk my property. I wasn't going to quit walking. I figured that was just a fluke, Mm-hmm. I knew the Bigfoots come through. I wasn't worried about them. So I started noticing, I said one day to my sister-in-law, she was walking with me, and I said, I hate those damn ferns. You couldn't see through my woods. Keep in mind, you couldn't see through my woods. You could see the road that you walked down. You could see the field, but you could not see through my woods. You see how thick they are. Right.
I'm looking at it right now.
I mean, and you couldn't even see the road because I have trees all the way across my property except where the road is. You couldn't see the road. So you can see how dense it is on there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all of a sudden I noticed that the ferns were gone. I thought, well, that's weird. Well, maybe they died out, but usually they're there. So you could see a little bit more than you normally could see. And then one area, they were really gone, and there was the little trees, the tiny little trees, because I had told, like you did, I hate them evergreen trees and da-da-da-da-da. I'd cut them all down because I rent from my sister, who lives just down the road. So I'm walking one night, and I'm late. It's almost dark. And then I had an appointment the next morning, so I was out at daybreak, and I was walking, and something caught my eye in the woods where these ferns had been all cleared out. And it was towards the back of the property, probably 20, 30 feet from the power line.
Okay.
I thought, what is that? What? And I couldn't figure out what it was, and so I thought, I'm going to see. So I go through, and I'm probably 20, 30 feet in, maybe 40 at the most. And here is where a deer had been. It looked like someone had pulled the hair out of this deer and laid it around in like an oval shape, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger till all the hair on its body was down there. There was a half a jaw. There was part of a back leg and the bone was twisted funny. And there was absolutely nothing else of that deer. There was no hide, no sign of the hide, nothing. Just that fur, the jaw, and one back leg bone. Well, I kept the jaw. Now, there was still meat on the jaw. And I'm like, what the hell can clear a deer like that and leave this neat of a mess? I'm telling you, Lance, it looked like the fur had been plucked and laid down in almost like in circles and just touching each other, laid perfect, feathered in a row, and it would have went all the way around the body, including underneath.
Strange.
And they could do that overnight because you're talking 9, 10 o'clock. Well, what time is it? So it's like 9:30. So you're talking about this time of night, and by 7 o'clock in the morning. Because I had an 8:30 appointment. I walked 7. I'd come in. I'd do the feed the dogs and stuff. Now I have dogs, but my dogs are not allowed to run out. They were Chihuahuas at that time. They're not allowed out, and there's a fenced off in the back. They're not allowed to bark. They'd bark if somebody come that they didn't know a few times, and I'd say, thank you, I got it. So anyways, here's this deer in the back, and I mean, it's just, there's just no way, there's no way that a coyote pack or a wolf, which we have here, or anything that could take a good-sized deer down would be able to do that. So I come back and I got my camera and I took some pictures and then I kept the jaw. I wish I would have, after I thought, oh damn, I should have kept that leg bone, but when I went back it was something had carried it off. I had at this point been on the place 9, 10 years and had never had a dead animal on the place. I never had a wild animal killed on my place.
That's strange. That's very strange.
And when I first moved here, I had Great Danes. And my Great Danes, I had 7 Great Danes in the house, and the neighbors never, now keep in mind, the neighbors at this time had never even, I'd been on the property 8, 9 years, and none of them even knew I had dogs. Because I don't raise a barking dog. I just don't. I have a Chihuahua in the house. She yipped to get on the couch. That's it, But anyways, so I still walked. But every time I walked, I was very aware. I carried my stick. I was very aware, and I stopped letting the kids play outside. Now, you know how hard it is to take city kids out here who are used to running the property without even a bother, are well aware of the bear and the other wildlife, and you can't let them outside because you're afraid something's going to get them. Because that Dogman, it's dangerous.
Right.
So you would feel watched, but I still walked. Then I'm a master gardener, and it's been 4 years since I've weeded my gardens. I don't plant a garden anymore. I don't weed my gardens. My bears, the male bear stopped coming around. The female bear stopped coming around, and a new bear took her place. One of her daughters took her place. It's been 3 years. Well, this is the third summer that the female bear stopped coming around. And we had the big male must have died, and one of his sons that was really mischievous moved in, and he's a bear that makes me nervous. So on top of the Dogman, the Bigfoot, I mean, that was not something I was really afraid of. I left them alone. They left me alone. I only walked the trails. I didn't go through my woods very often. First of all, you couldn't get through them. They were so thick. But this bear was pretty bad. In fact, last spring, he chased a neighbor girl through the woods. They had a cutting, so you know how sharp in that. She lost a shoe, and this bear stopped to maul her shoe. Then she lost a sock, and the bear stopped to maul her sock. And she come out on my sister's property, and my sister, she was pounding on the door. My sister let her in. So they brought the bear cage here because that bear would come here 2-3 times a week. But the bear never was seen again after that. So I don't know if they took him out because they don't want attention drawn to him. I know that sounds stupid, Lance. You're probably sitting there thinking this woman's cracked.
No, not at all. Not at all.
This woman is cracked. And I'm going to tell you something. When I listen to these podcasts and stuff, I laugh my ass off because they're saying the tracks just disappear. It's paranormal. No, it's not. They'll drop to their fingertips on their toes and their hands, and they'll glide over that land like you wouldn't believe and not leave a track.
You've seen this.
Yes, but I don't admit that to very many people. They'll also, when they're smaller, they'll go through the trees. The Dogmen practically live in the trees. Now, at this point, I'd seen the one Dogman. I hadn't seen it, but you could tell when it was out there. I pretty much stopped going outside because between the Dogman and that bear, I wasn't going to. So this is like I wasn't going to go. Very seldom do I have deer. If I have deer on my property, I know they're off hunting somewhere. And they weren't really, I would say that they weren't really living here where they started cleaning house and making house until not last summer, but the end of the summer before. I noticed that, like I said, all the ferns disappeared, then the small trees disappeared, and I'll tell you, and I'm going to tell you right now, nobody comes and cleans up the woods and stuff here anymore. My brother-in-law did for a few years, but he got really sick, and he died. It'll be 2 years next month that he died, and he hadn't been here probably in 3, 4, 5 years in the woods. He'd come and he'd ride the four-wheeler, but then it started with on one of the trails, because like I said, you got the road that goes around, and you got a road that'll cut through to the back of my trailer, and then it'll go almost to then it'll go further, and you could come out just where the tree line is between the yard, and he'd come down there, go around the front of the property by the parallel with the road in front of those trees, and then he'd go home. He'd drive his granddaughter around here, and all of a sudden, a tree was laying across that path, roots and all. Well, no, I never thought nothing of it. And then I started, last summer is when it really, really got bad. But not last summer, but the summer before. So I'm on disability, so I'm here all the time. So about 3 years ago, all the time I've been here, I've never locked the doors. And I have, like I said, I got probably a 5.5, 6 foot, just it's like, we call it hog wire.
Yes, and I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, but it's on a roll, and we run it around. When I was in hospital having a knee replacement, instead of sending me flowers, a friend put a no door on it, just a surround so that I could open up the back door and let the dogs out and let them back in. And that way, at night, I didn't have to go out with them at night because things were really creepy around here. Getting creepy. All of a sudden, then I'd hear that door open, and I'd say, "Who the hell? There's no door to get in there." And I would go out, and on the corner by the back of the thing, it was almost like, you know how when you'll step over a small fence and it's taller than you are, and your crotch will push it down?
Yes.
It was almost like that, but it was still up to my chest. bent like that.
Oh, wow.
And I'll also go on. I probably should have told you this, but I forgot. I did have hobos. I'm less than a quarter of a mile from a train track, and I used to keep a big iron tray about 5-6 inches deep and probably 4 to 4.5 inches, long and 2-3 feet wide. And I'd keep it back there, and I had to have firewood back there, and they would build themselves a fire, cook, and it stopped happening about 5 summers ago. They stopped coming because they'd leave me a newspaper from all over and with a thank you on it and stuff. I had chairs back there because the boys would go back there and build a fire too.
Okay.
So all of a sudden, a light like I said, 4 summers ago, they stopped coming, but there was a light, and I could see it through the back of the property if I stood a certain way in my house. And it was almost like a lantern light. And it never moved. And it'd be on for a while, and then it wouldn't, and sometimes it would be there, and it was always late at night, 2-3 o'clock in the morning. I'm thinking, well, they don't normally have a lantern when they're coming off the trains like that, but who knows? So I wasn't walking the property anymore because there was just too much happening when I did.
Right.
I stopped walking the property. It'll be four summers this summer. And I'd stopped because of that weird bear, He was very violent for a bear. I'd never seen such an aggressive bear in my life. And he would stand in this spot and he would go back and forth from foot to foot and rock when I was out in my gardens and stuff, or if I was outside, and that's why I really stopped going outside. It wasn't even the Dogman and the thing, but I started seeing that light. And I thought I shouldn't even be able to see it. The woods are so thick, I shouldn't even be able to see it. So I went back there, and there was a pole, like, those garden rails, they're probably 3-4 inches around, and it was stuck in the middle. It just stuck in the woods. It didn't look like it had been shoveled. It looked like somebody picked it up and rammed it. And it was a man-made wood, and next to it was this tree, and it was almost like a seat. And if you sat on it, you could see right to my kitchen window. And my kitchen window is really the only window you could see through where I wash dishes. It looks out over the little bit of the backyard and the sewer mound. And you could see that light, and you could see right through my kitchen window, and I thought, they're watching me. Somebody's watching me. And I thought, when did this get... And then I realized that all the trails, there was trails through the woods, and there was no... Because wherever you walked in them woods, if you did go through it, there was fallen branches. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't even, it wasn't nice. You tripped over everything. And there was literally trails going through it, and something was cleaning up these trails. Now, these hobos had never done anything like that, and it was to the extent that it was like, wow, who has the time to do that? You know what I'm saying, Lance?
Mm-hmm. Well, if the way I take it is that if something doesn't seem right, feel right, smell right, then it's probably not right. You know enough of normal where you live.
I knew it wasn't hobos doing it. I mean, I knew it because they weren't coming. They hadn't been coming for a couple of years. They had stopped coming here. They'd stopped getting off,
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, and you could barely know, it was probably waist high, this tree. And here's the thing, Lance. This tree was huge. And there was absolutely nowhere that this tree come from. It was quite long. The branches held it up, and you could literally, my son sat on it and bounced up and down, and it never moved. It was solid. But it was probably 3.5, 4 feet off the ground. And he says, Mom, I could see right through the kitchen window. He says, what the hell? What happened to the woods? I said, it wasn't me. He says, Mom, you barely pick up the yard. He says, I know you didn't come out here and pick up woods. So I thought, well, we got new neighbor kids. Maybe they were out here picking up woods, a bunch of neighbors moved out, new people. And I thought that I would have heard them. Because when my son had moved out by this time, 3 summers ago, This will be the 4th year he's gone, and I'm alone here now. You know, my 3 girls had moved out, my son had moved out, and I'd been alone here. And when he moved out, that is when things started picking up. So 3 summers ago, I'm laying in bed, and I have my bedroom so that my head of my bed is under the window, so I got my bookshelves around the room, so I got room for stuff. And I heard him coming. And I thought, oh my God, who's coming through the backyard? Well, whoever it is, they're baked. And then I started hearing, like, I'd had chickens at one point, and I had took 4x4s, made a frame, and then put chicken wires on them, and I wired them together for the fence. And whoever it was, somebody stumbled into that fence and knocked it down. And it was almost like they were swearing in a foreign language. And then they were right by my bedroom window, and probably 6 or 7 feet from my bedroom window is my propane tank. But they were right there, and there were 4 of them. And they were talking. It almost sounded like Japanese, Chinese. And they were talking, just like you and I would be sitting there talking. And I'll tell you how bad it scared me. I sleep with my head at the foot of the bed now, so that if they come through, reach through my window or punch through my window, I have my feet to fight with. And I know that sounds stupid, Lance.
Say that again. Say that again now. Say that one more time. How you were sleeping.
I wasn't sleeping. I was laying there reading. I have an e-reader, and I shut off all the lights except I keep one light on permanently, so that if the grandkids are here or something, they can come to get me. And I never turned it off because then I wouldn't be able to sleep with it on. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And I'm laying with my head to the under the window in my bedroom because my headboard is right under the thing, reading. Then I heard them coming. And one of them knocked over them fences. I hadn't had chickens for years, but they had knocked over them. They'd like walked into that fence. It was a real dark night. And I could hear them swearing, but you could hear, they came from almost like different areas in the woods. Okay? And like met by my bedroom window. And they kind of, and what was really weird is they were like, he was swearing and they were kind of huffing, like almost like an under the breath chuckle, you know, like not meeting, don't want to piss them off, so you don't want to laugh, kind of.
Yes.
And that's when I thought, oh my God, you know, they're right under my window. So when he come up, kind of swearing in a foreign language, and then they started talking, and they were there probably 45 to 50 minutes. And I kept thinking, and for a long time, I don't look out my windows at night. I just don't. I don't want to meet anything's eyes. And I finally got fed up, and I said, look, I don't bother you in the woods. You need to get away from my house. And they stopped talking.
Oh, wow.
And then they hit the side of the trailer, a hell of a hit, and they left. And they left talking.
Wow.
Among each other.
So this talking...
That never happened again.
Okay.
But I didn't know what to do. I was afraid. I didn't know what to do. But, you know, my dad was a tough old goat. He really was. And he was born in like 1903. He was in his late 60s when I was... He was in his 60s when I was born. And he told me, if you show fear, you're dead. He raised us all to believe if we ever showed fear, he said, I don't care how scared you are, the piss can be running down your leg, but if you show fear, you're dead. And he taught every one of us kids that. And there's no way I was going to lay there with them talking like that any longer. I couldn't. I'd have had a heart attack, Lance.
I believe it. You just have to convert it, yeah.
They've never come back and talked around my trailer. Now, the Sasquatch, the only time I've ever seen any of them on the property was when they met each other and they had that fight. But I knew they were both on the property. And if we had a bonfire, the Dogmen would come in. And one night my son he come with some friends. He said, Mom, can we have a fire tonight? My friends are home they moved away and they're back. The girls he went to school with. He says, there's only going to be the four of us. I said, yeah, I don't care. He said, I'm going to spend the night. I said, that's fine. And they're out there and they'd roasted hot dogs and marshmallows and visited and laughed and they were drinking. He said, Mom, can you bring us some more soda? And I said, yeah. And I said, I'm going to go lay down. He said, yeah, we're going to talk till the fire dies, And I always have big tubs of water for them to dump on the fire so we don't got to worry about it coming out. It's a fire pit. The guy who owned the place before was a DNR officer.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a DNR fire pit, I got a DNR outhouse, and I got a DNR sign on one of the outbuildings. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
So they're out there, and I get in bed, and I start hearing them really moving around out there, and I thought, what the hell, And it wasn't 15 minutes later, I heard the girls leaving. He says, get out of here now. And he come running in, and he starts moving the furniture in front of the door.
Oh, wow.
And I come out, and I said, what the hell is the matter with you? And he was so scared, Lance, he was babbling.
Oh, wow.
So I calmed him down. I said, what is the matter with you? He says, the Dogmen are here. I said, he says, Mom, I'm not kidding you. The Dogmen are here. And I said, okay. That's enough. And I started getting on the internet, and I started searching these things. And I pull up the Gable Road, the Michigan Dogmen, where they had that film.
Oh,
and when I seen that, have you seen that?
Yes.
Where they're running around on snowmobiles. It's probably in the 60s, 70s, late 60s, early 70s.
I have.
They're driving around on snowmobiles and they're working on cars, and they have an old-time video of this creature.
Yes.
Coming through, and then the camera's knocked over, and they had found this camera, and they had put this on the internet, and they got attacked so bad that they said that they faked it.
Right.
And they didn't fake it because that thing that was running through the field was just how that that Dogman come at me.
Really?
Have you seen it?
I have. I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen it a number of times.
Seen that, and I'm not one to really be afraid. I'm not. I seen it right now. Every hair is on my body, and I'm shaking when I talk about it. It was that close to what was coming at me when that Bigfoot hit it.
That's
and
incredible.
What really amazed me is that was one vicious fight, Lance. And all I could say is thank you for helping me, and turn around and come back to the house. You know what I'm saying?
When it finally hit that Dogman, when you saw this happen, and
they hit hard.
I know you said you weren't very good with distance, but if you were comparing it to a football field length, being 100 yards.
Well, you see where the field is?
Yes.
That little clearing is, and where the power line is?
Yes.
It was halfway between that field and there.
Oh.
So I wasn't far from it.
No, you weren't.
150 yards, 200 at the most, if that. I don't even know. I'm really bad at distances. I really am. Up close, because I craft, I can tell you 6 to 12, 18 inches, 2 foot, 3 foot. But long distances like that, I'm not good at it. For one thing, my eyes aren't that good. As far as like to adjust the distances.
Right.
I could see, but and the reason I know about the distances is because, like I said, I walked it every day. I'm sorry, my heart is pounding so hard talking about that.
No, that's okay.
That movie
that's
I'm
okay.
having a hard time catching my breath.
Just take your time. Get a glass of water. Take your time. We're in no hurry.
So, I'm not walking much anymore. And like I said, not last summer, but the end of the summer before, I'm really noticing the differences in my woods. Like I said, I could see see through to the woods, halfway through the woods. There was trails. All the wood, little pieces of woods on these trails were picked up. It was still quite dense, but you could tell something was going on. So, the beginning of last summer, is when I really noticed it. It was probably about this time of year, and I could see that winter right to the back of the property.
Oh,
the winter
okay.
before last year.
Sure.
There was that much small trees and stuff missing. And I thought, what the hell is going on in my woods? But that's not all. There was weird branch falls. Almost like, you know, when you hunt, you'll build yourself a blind where you'll stack wood and branches and stuff on. It was almost like that. I'd look out the kitchen window and I could see them, and I'm thinking, what is that? What is making that? I mean, you'd notice it. Like every week you notice a new something rearranged back there.
Mm.
So in the beginning of spring, like around this time, I really noticed there was a lot close to my house, right? Because I'm sure you can see the trailer. There's a little bit of distance between the back of the trailer and the woods going towards the power line, and it's right on the edge there. And I'm thinking, this is really weird. At this point, I had never told anybody, not my children, nobody, about what was going on here, because I know how my children believe. They thought I was crazy to believe in Bigfoot. Seeing is believing.
Mm-hmm.
Lance, seeing is believing. Most of the time, they'll migrate through and follow the food, you know.
Right. Well,
But
it's
they
a
didn't
definitely
this
wooded
summer.
area where you were at. There's lots
They
of
moved
woods.
in.
Yeah.
The Dogman and the Bigfoot was living on my property the last 3 summers and steady. Now, early spring like this, they come and go. But by midsummer, they're here steady. So things were getting so bad that last year I wrote that through Facebook. I told them, have you ever heard of the Dogmen being in Michigan? Because I had seen the footprint.
Yes.
And it was a paw, and then it was like, you know how the dogs, their back legs got like a hawk, and if they sit down like in mud, you can see their paw and you can see their elbow,
Yes.
I call it.
Yes. It's the hind.
He told me that night that he piled up come in and piled the furniture in front of the door. He said, Mom, it was at the back of my truck. Now, that was probably 30 feet from my house where I found that in the mud. And I didn't think of taking a picture of it. When I thought of it, I come back in to get the camera, my son backed over it. So, and because he left as soon as he woke up. He said, I ain't even staying here, Mom. And he has never spent the night here again. And he'd spend 2-3 nights a week. His buddies would come out, airsoft, you know. So I got a hold of this, and he basically told me there was no Dogmen in there. I said, have you ever heard of it in Rapid River? Have you ever heard of the Dogmen in that area? And he said, basically, no. And I started to tell him what was going on, and he basically said, have a good night.
What?
Never heard of him in Upper Michigan. 4 or 5 months later, he's got a pod cast on with a guy from the area talking about where this couple was coming down the road, and they were coming up on the Dutch mill, and here was this dead wolf on the side of the road with no head. And as they slow down to watch it, this Dogman comes out of the ditch with the wolf head in its mouth and walks across the road. And he's talking about all the different sightings that have been in the area and how they won't talk about it, but if they know about it, you know who to talk to. They'll tell you stories that go back hundreds of years. But you know how the hill people, like in Tennessee, won't talk to certain people?
Right.
Well, the people up here are pretty closed-mouthed about certain things, too.
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I did an interview with a gentleman that was a truck driver, and he he never told anybody but his sister. And the sister contacted me. He was a little bit older gentleman, and he, with a lot of coaxing, he finally made contact with me. But before we really spoke during the interview, he was kind of interviewing me quite a bit just to see how what were my thoughts about if
very
it was
careful.
Yeah,
They're very careful.
He was very careful about interviewing me, and we first started communicating with email, and then it actually went that went on for a while, and then finally we got to the point of the interview. He just wanted to make sure. Honestly, I think he didn't want me to ridicule. Was I going to believe him?
No, I'll tell you what. I left that. After I got done sending that email to and everything that come back, I thought, oh, what a joke. You people are something else. You're supposed to be there for us. And I thought, well, you're one person.
Well.
So then I found out there was a local Sasquatch hunter and big Dogman hunter here locally. He's probably about an hour and a half away, depending on how fast you drive and who's in front of you. And so I liked his page, and he had put an article that he had went, and they have a program at Badenoch College here where the seniors can go once a month, and they have different speakers come. And he mentioned that on the day's trail, a Bigfoot had been sighted.
Oh, wow.
And I said, I come on underneath that after reading that, and I said, I believe it. I'm less than a half a mile from there. I believe it. And he said, well, there was a second sighting to the north. Well, I'm the north. I says, I believe it too. You should see my backyard. Now, at this point, I had only been telling my sister-in-law what was going on in the backyard, because I had decided last summer that that's it. I'm taking my walk back. And I would talk to him. I said, I'm walking this walk. This is my property. I got to have the exercise. I'm not in shape. I'm going to lose it if I don't use it. You stay off. You stay away from the house. I'll stay out of the woods, but I got to walk the property. And I'd get 3/4. So I'd go down the one side. It would be to the left, because I always went on the left, because I'd come out of my trailer, go to the left, and go down the left side of the property when you're facing the power line. Then I'd go across the back, then come down the right side, and come back up to my trailer. Now, when I started walking this, all the trails that I did have to meet other roads or meet other areas in the property had logs laying across it. And I noticed that all the little trees are gone. A lot of areas opened up. I can pretty much see every neighbor. I can see every neighbor.
Wow.
And they took logs, Lance, and they laid them end to end, like the fat end to the skinny end, fat end to the skinny end. And they laid it all the way along that trail that you go down, around that little meadow in the back, skip the road, and come back down, back to the road that then you turn and come in front of the outhouse. And that road was blocked off with logs. The road across from that is blocked off with logs. Every so many feet, there's a log laying across it. But they have and I'm like, it's a containment field. It's a containment field, almost like a corral. And the main road is the only thing that didn't have logs across it. So you go around the back of the property, and you turn like you're going to go so that I can go across the property and then back down the home stretch. When you get to that last road, it is so freaking creepy, and it smells like a dog marked territory, somebody marked territory. And it's not overpowering, but you can smell it. And bugs. I had no bugs anywhere else but there the bugs just come like you wouldn't believe. So I'm going to tell this guy about this. And I said, you should see my backyard. He said, I'd love to. Send me a private message. So I told him who I was, and I said, you said to send me a private, and you wanted to see my back. Basically, here's my address. He come back and said, road is the site of where the second sighting took place. And I'm like, Who's seen it? Where on the road? When are you coming? Lance, he's never answered me, and he never come, and that was last August.
Do you think
he never got hold of me again? I thought, boy, you're some kind of a researcher. So then when that come back on with that show of Upper Michigan, I went back on Facebook and I said, wow, I said, you made me feel so stupid. I said, that show you had on about Upper Michigan, every bit of that is within a 25-mile radius of me. Like, you take a circle, you put a middle where I am, and you take a 12 miles out, and you go around, and I'm in that circle where all that happened. And I said, you made me feel like a fool. He's never contacted me. So then I started listening, and I started listening to different podcasts other than him.
Right.
And he says, you can call me, you can talk. So I called him, and I said, I need help, because things are really getting scary around here. Because at that point, they started coming and jumping on the roof of the trailer and running the length of the roof, because I have a separate roof. I have a separate roof for my trailer that is with that metal.
Oh, right,
roof
right.
Over my trailer house. And they'll they'll travel through the trees, jump to the top, and they'll run back and forth on my roof. One time, one fell off this winter, fell off the roof and hit the deck, shook the whole house and the deck. In fact, it pulled the deck 3 inches from my trailer. There's a gap from where the trailer meets the deck, and my son hasn't got down there and put new bolts in yet. And I said, oh my God, are you okay? And it never answered. And then it got up and it just pounded the shit out of the side of my trailer. And it one showed itself to my 10-year-old grandson when he was going to the bathroom. He come out of there so scared. He's an adopted grandson. He's my youngest granddaughter's half-brother. And he comes here too. I've known him since he was 3 weeks old. He calls me Grandma. He comes here. He was going to the bathroom and he looked up and one was looking in the window at him. And he says, oh, Grandma, you're not going to believe what I just seen. I said, I'd believe anything you told me. And will exaggerate, but he described the Dogman to a T.
Really?
So I call this from, and I'm telling him what's going on. He says, you know what, I'm getting ready to sit down to lunch. I might be able to have somebody that can help you. I'll call you back. And then the phone rang, it was him, and he butt dialed me. He was talking to a little kid. Then about an hour later, he butt dialed me again, and I've never heard from him. And I thought, wow, you know, I'm alone in this.
Here's what I'm going to say about, and I don't personally know, I mean, I know of them, but I don't personally know them.
No, I don't have any respect for them.
But here's what I will say regarding, and this is our premise, whether it's Wiley Dave, myself, my brother Bill, Lane, or Mike, is that this is why we emphasize that the word investigator and researcher to us means an entirely different thing based on what a lot of people say they are. We don't call ourselves researchers because research to me is you can actually perform paper research or computer research and go into the field, but a researcher to me is someone in a lab doing DNA analysis, things like that. We're more of an investigator, but we have done this enough in the field with some of the expertise that Wiley Dave has in canine behavior that we try to give good, logical, sound advice.
These are real tribes.
Oh yeah, these
are tribes of. They're more people than animal, Lance, as far as their intelligence goes.
Well, and you know, you hit on something.
They have a code, and here's where I'm at. I'm fine. They're start, and I'll tell you when the activity picks up is if I get company, especially male company.
Really?
Yes. When I get male, and I know it's the Dogman. I know it's the Dogman coming on the trail, you know, coming to the trailer here.
Okay.
And hitting the trailer, pounding the trailer, running back and forth on the roof. I know it's the Dogman. I think it's their youth. I think it's kind of like Coop. Like the Indians played Coop. and the structures that are in my yard. I was telling my sister-in-law this, and my sister-in-law knows that I don't lie. I tell a story in a way that because I just do. I tell a story as a storyteller would, but I don't lie, Lance. I don't. She knows it. And I would go into town and meet her, and she'd say, "Come on, really?" I said, "You know I don't lie." "I know, but are you sure this is really happening?" I said, "You've been in my woods." So I leave one day, and when I leave the driveway last summer, it was probably August, September. I can't remember the exact date, but I always, before I get to the tree line and the road, I look to my left and I look to my right. When I come home, I look to my left and I look to my right. As of this point, everything happened from the back of the trailer back. Okay?
Okay.
The other woods was left alone. I come home that day after her saying, "I gotta say that I'm having a really hard time believing there's anything like that's going on. I know you're not lying to me, but it's just hard to believe." I said, and I was pissed. I was pissed all the way home because I don't lie, and she knows it. And I drove in my driveway, and I looked to the left, and it was fine. I looked to the right, and down that road that I had told you it's just as I come in the driveway in the tree line, and down that road where that log was across it, and I never thought of it, but that tree had never been there. That tree had to have been placed there.
Mm.
And I look, and where the road is, there's trees on each side, and there's two trees butted up against each other with the back roots crossed up hard against those trees. And I thought those trees weren't there, and they're huge trees. And I get up, and I'm thinking, what the heck? And I get up and walk up my deck, which is quite big, and I look straight ahead, and they had cleared most of that area right out and put another surround with those logs in like a surround. And I thought, I've had enough. So I got my camera, and I never took a video. I took a couple videos, but I'm not an expert at it.
Right.
And I got out on the porch, and I started talking and started telling everything. And I walked down my porch to the front yard to where those trees are veed, back there, talking the whole way. They've got it so clear that I can see my neighbors all the way around, Lance. I come back across. There's parts of trees that I don't even have them trees around here. Birch trees in the front yard. I had them in the back, but not the front. And there's some birch limbs piled. I go around my garden. I come back. I show where the back of the property is. I come around to the back of the trailer. I show some of the things. I go through, and I can't see the camera close up, so it's held in front of my chest, and I just doing that. And I'm walking with my granddaughter, Lance, while I'm doing this, and I'm telling this story, and you'll hear me. I'm heavy breathing, and I'm getting heavy because I'm afraid. I'm not going to show them fear. And I talked, and sometimes I moved the camera too fast, but then I'd come back. I went down the trail. I talked the whole story. Lance, there's a part between my front property and on the other side of the back of the property, across from where the power line is, where they took all these little limbs. Because when I first moved here, if a tree fell, my brother-in-law would cut it down. He'd cut the branches, and he'd pile them in a high pile for the rabbits and the birds. Okay. For protection. I don't like that idea, but it's his property. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They built a structure. It's almost like a beaver dam structure, and it's quite big. Really? And I believe that the Bigfoot are in that area where that structure is on the other side of the power line. Now, when you come up to the property to turn right and to come back on the last stretch, the Dogmen are on the left hand. If you're coming down that road, they're on the left hand of the property. Big logs and stuff in. You can see where there's like pockets where I think they've dug out areas, and I think they sleep there at night, and you can feel them. But I'm talking and stuff in this video, and the video would go out, and I'd start it again. When I get to the last part where I'm going to go down that road, I had like 84 or 87% because I thought, man, how how much do I got? I hope I can make the property, you know.
Right.
And I looked, and I had plenty of battery. I didn't even get down that road, and the battery just quit like that. But you'll hear my granddaughter say, Grandma, I said, stop it. Let me finish. I mean, and then all of a sudden it was gone. And she said, Grandma, we got to get to the house. It breathed on my neck. Well, they come from the trees, Lance. So my niece and her daughter's down, and I'm telling her about this because I told her, because she'd lived with me for quite a few years, like 3-4 years, when she was in high school. She lived with me down here before she went back to Green Bay, Wisconsin, to live with her mother. And so I'd been telling her off and on what's going on. And she said, don't lie, I believe you. And I said, well, I'll show you she says, can I see the videos? Because there's quite a few. There's like 4 or 5 where you turn it on, and one is turned it on, it was only on seconds, and it shut off, and I just turned it back on and kept going, you know.
Right.
And we're talking, more talking, then she said, wow, and there's no woods left. I said, I know, right? She said, this is crazy. And her little girl is hanging onto her arm. She's like 15 years old, and she's hanging onto her arms, and she's just shaking. And I said, honey, it's not that bad. She says, how can you say that? I can't believe you're even out there. So she's riding home her little girl, and she says to her, she says, Mom, I looked them up, and what's in Aunt's yard is exactly what she says it is. And I thought, well, wow, that's weird, because how would she know, you know? So my sister-in-law comes, and I said, you and I are going to, I said, we're going to walk the property. She says, oh, no, I'm not. I said, fine, then you're going to watch, you and your daughter are going to watch the video with me. Lance, I caught him on video. There's a spot where my granddaughter was shooting at a squirrel.
Right.
And I said, stop that before you hit something you shouldn't. And you look up behind her, and there's these 2 tall trees, and there's one up in the air hanging on to one of each of these trees. There's one coming down one of the trees. There's one area where it's looking from behind, because I look at somewhere else as I'm moving the camera, so I don't think they realized they had a camera. And he's looking behind the trees, and as I move past him, he totally steps from behind that tree, and he's clear as day.
Really? You have that on camera?
Yeah, I haven't looked at it since, but yeah, I have him, and I have him on my camera card, so nobody can say I messed with him. Wow. I went to Walmart. When I did it, I went to Walmart and had them put on discs. And I do have them on discs, too. Is
there a way that you can, do you know enough computer work where you can send that video or a picture to me?
Videos? I don't know enough. I think they're too big to send. I mean, I think they're too big to send through an email or something.
Do you know how to copy that disc and burn a disc? Do you have that ability?
I can go make the discs again.
Would you do that? And
I probably can burn them. I could try burning them because I do have them. I could play with them. There's some spots where I move too fast and the video is a little blurry, but most of it is very clear. And I'm kicking myself. I won't watch them again. I won't watch them again. But I'm kicking myself for not writing down where we've seen them.
Yeah, I was going
to... But my sister-in-law, she's... The structures alone, there's one part on the end just before you go where there's a tree hung up on the other trees. It's straight across with the root on the end. And there's a spot where there's exits and more containment. And I talk through it, and I'm babbling. You got to tell me I'm like babbling this because I'm scared back there, Lance. So I sound like an idiot. I really do. But I tell different things that has happened and things like that. Somewhere I have pictures of that deer kill. Where I don't know, I'd have to really look for it. And then I could show you the date, and the date would be on there because it's burned right from my camera card to a disc at like Walmart.
Yeah, I would like to, if you don't mind. I'd like to take a look at it and see what I can see. I film quite often given to me, and so I have a way I can blow it up. I can look. So if you can burn it. I know
you got that one guy from. Where is he from? You got that one guy that's working with you. You got a whole crew now.
Well, we have a few people. Yeah, we have some people that, got busy with work and stuff. But as far as, with my brothers and...
I'm telling you, if I would have had an address for you, I would have sent these discs to you by now.
Well, I tell you what, I will give you my address, and then...
It might take me a few days to get them in the mail to you.
That's okay. It's okay, and I'll reimburse you.
No. You don't have to reimburse me. I will send them to you. I just, I know it sounds like I'm crazy.
No.
I know, especially after talking to those other investigators and being blowed off like that, I feel like I'm nuts.
Well, here's the reason, if you don't... it's frustrating because...
I think they're in it for the entertainment.
Well, that's just it. And, when we got into it, we really did the show mainly for therapy for us, is how we got started. But what happened is that it started becoming true therapy for other people. And we're trying to really get a grasp of this and really help the people work through this, because there is
You know what I felt like, Lance? I'm going to be honest with you. I felt like, it's the little woman. She don't know what she's talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She's just an hysterical woman.
Well, everybody's going to behave a certain way when you see these. It's just abnormal to have these around, and so I think that
I'm going to tell you, I'm a very old-fashioned person. I am. I don't believe in women's lib. I believe that man and woman were created by God to complement each other, not compete with each other. It's not that a woman can't do a man's job, but why should she? She has a job of her own. I truly believe that. But I was a single mother with 4 kids, never been married, worked my butt off. I'm very independent. I could take care of myself. I'm not scared very often. These things scare me. They travel through the trees. They've not hurt me, and I don't have a sense that they're going to hurt me. I do get creeped out when I go on that side because I feel like I'm invading their territory. I stopped walking after I made that video. I haven't been back there since.